got me on the NFL numbers. You got me on the NFL facts, and I worked hard on. Listen, I spent the most time on these arguments because, like I said, I'm not a fair weather fan, but I'm relatively new compared to you. You understand the offenses. You understand the nuances a little bit better.
So you can name any. You can name any year. I'll tell you who won the Super Bowl. Like
Exactly, and we're about to move into the NBA now, though.
Mr.
And
D Recruit. This is his game, bro. You watch. I'm gonna put a comment says mixtape, his highlight mixtape, yo. So you when you look at him, you're looking at someone who knows his hoops, bro. Who got recruited.
listen, man, like
Name the
it's not even me just like talking big game and just being like, listen, I do this. Like, listen, I lived this for a good 10 years of my life. I was bullied growing up because I was overweight, wanted to become a hooper to prove people wrong, trained, shouts out my trainer Martin. He believed in me and got me to the point where I was at one point ranked ninth in the state for scoring. I was nationally recruited. Shouts out Coach Mike McGrath at U Chicago, universities, Case Western, Union, Hamilton, all them. But when it comes down to it, you know, part of me becoming a good basketball player was understanding the sport, understanding the league, and understanding all the little nuances inside of it that go aside from stats. So, you know, a lot of what I'm talking about is coming from the heart. Some of it will be statistical, some of it will be factual, but a lot of it's just coming from my analysis of the game. So if you disagree with me, feel free to talk to me about it. I'm never going to put someone down for their NBA opinions. At the end of the day, it's opinions on what these grown men have been able to do in the league. You know, it's opinionated, and you know, people might differ greatly to where you might think someone's the greatest of all time, and I might think someone completely different is. But what it comes down to is just if you know the game and you want to talk about it, talk about it. Don't come with no like, oh, I love this guy, that's why he's the greatest. Like, no, just know your stuff. And if you think that I'm a little too far gone in the way I feel about basketball, that's fine. But I'm just letting you know I live this. So moving on to it, I'm gonna let Danielle kind of transition.
Yes, sir. So our first NBA topic finna be the Mount Rushmore of point guards. So I'm gonna add a twist to Sue. Let's do our Mount Rushmore of point guards all time, and let's do one for post ABA NBA merger too. So I think we have like two different spins to it that would make it a little more interesting for me. So
Okay.
first is the old time one. Before the old time, doesn't matter if it's before or after the ABA NBA merger.
Okay. So I think there's at least three guys that you have to have in your top five, or your Mount Rushmore, your top four. There's three guys who automatic, and you can argue the third, but at the end of the day, there's at least the top two are the top two, and the third I think is a majority vote in terms of who's on that Mount Rushmore, and then the fourth is really where the debate starts, in my opinion. Number one, I'm gonna put Magic Johnson.
Got to.
I mean, the game today would not be the game it is. LeBron James would not be LeBron James without a guy like Magic Johnson in the league. 6'7" point guard, played every single position in one game, 17, 8, and 11 his entire career. 5 championships, 3 MVPs, I believe. Like, the man could win. The man did it at the highest level. The man is the reason the Showtime Lakers existed, and he is the greatest point guard of all time. Number 2, John Stockton. Most assists all time as a point guard. Utah Jazz would not be the Utah Jazz as they were in the 90s without him. Karl Malone would not be Karl Malone without John Stockton. The man had, I believe, the second or third most points of all time. Karl Malone, who's feeding him? John Stockton hands it off to the mailman. Mailman puts it in the basketball hoop. So John Stockton deserves a lot of credit. I know he's a small white boy, and a lot of people say, oh, if Russell Westbrook was in that time, he would have been just like that. At the end of the day, John Stockton wasn't playing with no weak defense, with no weak players. He's playing in the Jordan era, and he was still able to get the most assists of all time. The man played his role, and the man was a point guard to a T. If I ever had a kid and he's just like, I want to be a point guard, I'm showing him John Stockton highlights. Number 3 for me, the Big O, Oscar Robertson. In my opinion, a lot of people are like, oh, but Russell Westbrook came through and said that ain't shit. Big O played with Kareem. Big O played in Milwaukee, and on the Royals, and he laid the foundation for the fact that you can be a point guard but not just pass the ball. and he did that way ahead of his time. Yes, Russell Westbrook comes in now. You guys got guys like Ben Simmons, Luka Doncic, who are able to get triple doubles almost on a nightly basis. Even LeBron James when he's bringing the ball up the court. But when you look at a true point guard who understood his role but also did it at the highest level at every aspect of the game, it's the Big O, the first player to average a triple-double. And when you look at the gap between when he did and the next player to do it, which was Russell Westbrook, so it's what, 40 years at that point? So he laid the foundation and did it when it was almost unimaginable. There's no Russell Westbrook without the Big O.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to my fourth, this is where, you know, there's a lot of debate. You know, you can say, you know, Russell Westbrook, you can say Isaiah Thomas, CP3. I will not say LeBron James is in this conversation because he's a small forward at the end of the day. You know,
We're on your fourth guy now, right?
Yeah, we're on my fourth guy. And might be a little controversial, and I think that happens whenever you put a new school guy in an all-time conversation, especially when he's still playing. But when I'm talking about the top 4 point guards of all time, I'd be an idiot not to include Stephen Curry.
I know, thank you. I was really worried that you weren't gonna put him in, but like
So listen, when you're talking about players who not only had a huge impact on the game in their time and had the accolades, but also revolutionized the game. The reason that you don't see a lot of big posting up, the reason, sadly, Dwight Howard, one of my favorite players of all time, slowly fell out of relevancy is because they extended the floor, and that was led by Stephen Curry, one of the few point guards we've ever seen who dribble up the court and pull up from three as soon as he crosses half court. He's a player who not only can shoot the three ball, in my opinion, he will be the greatest three-point shooter of all time, not just from a skill standpoint, but from a numbers standpoint. He will pass Ray Allen. He is someone who
I think he already passed Ray Allen as the greatest three-point shooter ever.
Yeah, but I'm talking numbers-wise. I'm talking just like total three-pointer. He's close. He's close. I think he's only like 100, less than 200 off, I believe.
So next season,
but
pass him most likely.
He has a full healthy year. He's good, but what it comes down to is you have to recognize that Stephen Curry, a lot of people think is hype, but the problem is in the new age, especially with social media and the internet, hype is hype. Hype is just people thinking that someone's really good and then it becomes popular. But you also have to recognize when someone's really popular and popping up because, you know, it's not just a bunch of people hyping someone up for no reason. There's validity behind it when you see a common denominator. And, you know, Stephen Curry, in my opinion, is playing in what we could consider the golden age of point guards. I mean, you just look at the early 2000s. We had Steve Nash, Rondo towards the end of the decade, Jason Kidd, but there wasn't too many guys who were that standout. Jason Williams, White Chocolate, but
Ron Williams, I feel like Ron Williams is underrated a lot.
Ron Williams, he kind of had fall off. Devin Harris.
We always just talk about like how the point guards fell off, but like when yeah, you're right. That's very true. We got Rondo fell off, Ron Williams fell off. CP3 is the only one, but like CP3 is the only one that was that mainstay from like the previous generation that's still balled out. But like
you could argue Chauncey Billups, but again, like when it comes to the Mount Rushmore, none of those guys are up there. CP3 towards the end of the decade, he had the potential, and I think CP3 would be a legitimate person to have as your number 4.
OG Isaiah Thomas as well. You're forgetting that's another guy in the discussion.
I mentioned Isaiah as someone you could have in the discussion. I just think that Isaiah's game wasn't enough to be that revolutionary along with carrying his team. Part of it is because he had to face against Michael Jordan every single time he was in the playoffs. Yeah, he had the chips, but you had to have the bad boy offense completely created just to destroy the greatest player of all time, in my opinion. And I'm a huge LeBron fan, but I'm still saying
Jordan. Like,
go.
I don't know why this is a debate, but yeah.
I can see why it's a debate, but at the end of the day, you gotta pay your dues, and we'll get to that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it comes down to who revolutionized the game, who did it at the highest level. And when you're looking at assists, finishing inside, understanding his team, and also revolutionizing the game, Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry, at the end of the day, is the epitome of a generational talent. If you look at the new age of basketball, yeah, LeBron James is the poster child, but Stephen Curry is the creation of 2010s basketball and onward. The reason you got 6'7" kids who are freshmen in high school pulling up from three and not posting up in the paint is because the offenses are extended. You cannot last in the NBA if you don't have a jump shot. If you want to be a star, Joel Embiid, he did not think he was going to need a jump shot till he got to the league. Nikola Jokic,
Porzingis.
Porzingis, like all these, even Dwight Howard's developing a little jumpy on the low. Blake Griffin, you can't be a true post player in today's NBA because the game is so centered towards the skill set required to be a three-point shooter. Because at the end of the day, 3 points is greater than 2 points. And a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, but it's a lower percentage shot. Not anymore. Because if you work on it enough, it becomes a higher percentage shot. That's it.
Great point. And like, I think too, like you look at it, people bring up his playoff stats. Yeah, his field goal percentage might be only 44, 43, but you got to keep in mind his 3-point percentage is like 45% or like sometime over, like well over 40%. So like, that's giving you an extra, that's 50% more points right then and there. So like, even if his field goal percentage might be low, when your 3-point percentage is that high, like you're still just as efficient as the guys that have like a 50% field goal percentage for regular 2-pointers. You know what I mean? So it's a good point.
And and the thing is, pointing at field goal percentage, you can be like, oh, but he averaged a lower field goal percentage compared to this guy who had 60. You got to look at the shots he's taking. You know, Stephen Curry, I'd say about 35 to 40% of his shots are 3-pointers.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's one thing to have a 45 to 50% field goal percentage as a role player, but to have it as a star who's taking that shot in those clutch moments, I'll take it. If you're taking a big shot for me and it's a 50-50 shot, but you're also the one creating the shot, I'm going to take it. Because you can have these centers like Andre Drummond who have like a 65% field goal percentage. Or a couple years ago, DeAndre Jordan led the league with over 70% field goal percentage.
Even Giannis, when you're driving the hole every game, every play, you know what I mean?
But the thing is, getting to the paint, especially when you're in a league where the guys inside the paint are 6'10" plus.
You do it for so long, and if you rely on that only, you're not going to win a chip. You're not. That's why LeBron had to develop that jump shot in Miami before he won a chip.
It's really easy to have 3 guys inside the paint ready to block a shot or foul it and let you shoot your little free throws versus having the whole floor spread, not knowing where the shot's going to come from. Exactly. That's why Stephen Curry is such a versatile player, because he can drive on you and hit you with that little floater.
He gets a very, very underrated finisher, Steph Curry, no doubt.
People don't realize he goes up. He's not afraid. He will go up against Rudy Gobert, DeAndre Jordan, some of the best shot blockers in the league, and still,
he was getting more layups and points in the paint than KD was during the time there. Yeah. Like, if you look at it, yeah.
But and it comes down to he just recognized. But like a big part of that too is the fact that if you're guarding Stephen Curry, you know that you're guarding one of the greatest point guards of all time and one of the greatest shooters of all time. You're not trying to give him any space. Now, mind you, even if he's at the fucking logo, he can pull. But what it comes down to is you have to respect his shot over anything, because he shoots his 3-pointer at such a high percentage that you'd almost rather he takes a layup. Like you said, about 45%, both regular field goal and 3-point percentage. If that's the case, I don't want you taking a 3, because it's the same chance you take a 3 versus you take a layup. I want you to take the 2-pointer, because this is, you know what I'm saying? It's 3 versus 2.
Yeah, exactly.
And that revolutionized the game. And you can't even deny the fact, the Warriors were one of the greatest super teams we've ever seen. A 73-9 season, Steph Curry had a lot around him to be as successful as he did. One of the greatest players of all time, and Kevin Durant with him for 2 seasons. Or
won that chip before him, though. That's one thing we can't take away from him. I see people like knocking too much. He had that 1 ring before him, like.
And I'm gonna keep it a buck.
Against, and people are gonna bring up Kevin Love and Kyrie got injured. All right, fine. But like, we got a lot of old-time great players who won rings versus teams that were one-man armies. Like,
if that's the case, then take away Kawhi's ring. Take away Kawhi's ring with the Raptors, because you had Kevin Durant hurt, you had Draymond Green a little hurt, you had Klay Thompson.
Jordan played against Sir Charles, so that was a one-man army, pretty much.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like, you're not gonna look at Charles Barkley and say you were not a Hall of Fame player just because you don't got no rings. Like, rings plays a role. Because, like I said with Dak Prescott, leadership is a role as a star. But when it comes down to being able to do it at the level Steph Curry was able to do it, and I think people don't credit the fact that he had so many different scenarios he faced with. When it was being a backup for Monte Ellis, having Klay Thompson as the only secondary player on his team, to
I
have the Warriors that were just gelled, and to having KD on their team to when they were like literally the dream team. He's won it at every single aspect of that. And the thing is, no matter what season you take, whether they won the championship or not, he has been the focal point. Even when KD was on the team, KD was easily the most talented player on the team, but Steph Curry was the focal point because he understood the offense.
Curry had bigger moments. Curry, like the first 2 years, they were there for 3 seasons together, right? The 2 seasons they won they won championships together. Curry finished ahead of KD in MVP voting. And it's not because, like Curry's personality. No, like if you look at the regular season number, Curry was putting up more points. You look at their record, the Warriors' record without KD was like 30-5, something like that. And when you look at the record with KD without Curry, they were like below 500. They were below 500, yo. Like, again, Curry doesn't get the respect he deserves. And like people mention that again, 2014, Love and Kyrie got hurt. Look at all the, like I mentioned, I'm not gonna go into it right now, but if you want to do the work history on your own, you can find other like Hall of Fame players that beat one-man armies or even worse teams than that 2014 LeBron team. And then again, the choking in like 2016, right? They were up 3-1. So it's not like Curry was a bum. He wasn't playing well. Like he was playing well in that series too.
And it's a different monster, especially when you're, the 3-1 Warriors going up against arguably the greatest player of all time in LeBron James.
Yeah. And another thing too, like I think has there been a better scoring point guard in NBA history than Curry? Just as a scorer, has that? I don't think there has. I'm dead ass. I can't think of nobody. I don't think a point guard's been a better pure scorer than Curry. Than Steph Curry with the shot. I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't really look at somebody and say they're a better scorer than Curry. The only one that comes to mind, honestly, I'm not farting, by the way. I'm sitting on a leather chair. The only one that comes to mind is honestly Russell Westbrook. But again, Russell Westbrook can score at a high level, but not as consistent and as well as Stephen Curry.
No mid-range, no three-point shot.
So we've established Steph Curry is generational, belongs on that Mount Rushmore. Who's your top four?
All right, cool. So if you want to answer this real quick, so I said post AB NBA 2, you mentioned Big O, so you have to take out Big O and put someone else in that Mount Rushmore. Who would you put there? Would it be OG Isaiah Thomas maybe, or Russell Westbrook?
It's between them two and CP3.
Okay. Gotcha. I mean, yeah, you don't have to narrow it down. I just was wondering.
I'd probably give the edge to Isaiah, and I haven't done it's Isaiah, and the one player who was snubbed from the Dream Team, won championships, was the leader of that Bad Boys Pistons. Little bit of a controversial pick because Isaiah versus MJ, Last Dance, yada yada yada. But Russell Westbrook's a phenomenal point guard, probably the most athletic point guard we've ever seen, aside from probably pre-injury Derrick Rose, the only other point guard in NBA history that can match up athleticism wise. But when it boils down to who belongs on that Mount Rushmore, I think if you're taking out the Big O, yeah, Russell Westbrook kind of did what the Big O did, but where's Russell Westbrook's ring? On top of that,
I don't think Westbrook should even be in the conversation. He's never won a playoff series as the best player on his team.
Russell Westbrook is someone who, if he had less of a I need to be the man complex, would be in the conversation, because the one thing that he kind of fails at, and I'm not saying he's a bad leader. If you're telling me that I can start a team with Russell Westbrook, I'm not mad. But I think there's times where, and I hate the conversation about he's a stat chaser or a stat patter, but I
wouldn't say that, but I think he was. If you look at the tape, he told his teammates to give him rebounds. The tape.
What worries me the most is the fact that and it's not even about the rebounds, the assists, yada yada yada. It's about the fact that he will not give up that last shot, and it's. When people hear the last shot, it's like, oh, that's just in a clutch time. What does that mean? No, I'm talking about the big shots in games. He will not he wants to be that guy, but I don't think he's versatile enough to be it. He has the highlight plays, he has the numbers, but the problem is way too inconsistent from mid range. His 3 points on and off, and him driving is phenomenal, but eventually in the clutch time, you driving the basket is pretty tough. I'd say it's the lowest percentage chance you can get because some teams will take you at the free throw line.
Yeah. And like what was I about to say about Westbrook? The thing is, yeah, shit, what was I about to say about him? About the game on the line. Yeah, another thing too that worries me about Westbrook, like his assist numbers, yeah, he gets you like 10, 11 assists per game. But like I watched all his primetime games. I've seen Westbrook too many times rack up 7, 8, 6, at least 6, 7 assists in the first half. And he only gets you like 2 or 3 in the second half. And it's just that hero ball complex. Like that's
he had a triple-double in the first half. And like obviously they won that game, but I want your stats to also lead to dubs, Like
I care about timeliness and more about numbers.
It's because the thing is, it's impressive that you can do that, but it's even more impressive if you can do that in an effort to win. Like LeBron James is someone who can average damn near the same numbers Russell Westbrook did, but he wouldn't do it in an attempt to do it.
Yeah,
he would do it in an attempt to win because that's what it takes.
Put your team in the best place to win.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think looking at the Mount Rushmore pre-merger, Big O, John Stockton, Magic Johnson, and my number 4 is definitely Steph Curry. Post-merger, I'm with Big O. I'm gonna go Isaiah. I will say though, and this is just a point that's like kind of just specific to me, but if Derrick Rose never got injured, he would replace Isaiah.
That's fair. He's the second biggest what if in NBA history after T-Mac. That's what I think.
I would agree. I would say he's like second, and the close third is Greg Oden.
Or Grant Hill is another one.
Grant Hill is another one. Brandon Roy is huge, but the thing is, Brandon Roy's not even a what if. It's just like we saw what it was. It was just it didn't happen.
I agree with that. And obviously, Len Bias, he died. So like that's R.I.P. Like
don't do coke, kids. Like
don't do crack. Like just don't.
I get if you're on a high being the number 3 pick in the NBA draft, but like shit, you got so much work you put in to get there. Don't ruin it with one line. So but yeah, there's a lot of different, pieces that could be like, oh, what if they did this? What if they did that? But when you look at the actual content and the actual performance, I think Isaiah is in that mix.
Word? Yeah, I heard you. So let me hit you with mine. All right, Mount Rushmore, all time. I'm gonna go with Magic. I'm gonna go with Big O. I'm gonna go with Curry, and I'm gonna go with CP3. CP3, I think he's better than Stockton. I think compared to OG Isaiah Thomas, I think he's a better player than OG Isaiah Thomas. And then, I truly think he's better than Stockton. I know this is gonna be raising some eyebrows, but I'm gonna give some reasons, numbers, and just ability-wise, and put some context to his career as well. So numbers are an easy thing to spit off the bat, so they speak for themselves. But again, I don't really care that much about numbers. As you mentioned, you saw in my previous debates, I brought up stats, but the more meaningful thing to me is context and ability. So like I was mentioning with Breeze, like I think Breeze is the most accurate quarterback in NFL history. Top of that, deep ball wise, I think Rodgers might have a better Hail Mary, but I think Breeze has a more consistent deep ball, like every other, like just play by play. And then same thing with I brought up the Montana stats and stuff too, but it's not even just that. It was just about the situations, like Montana switch teams, switch systems, and So let me just talk about CP3. Highest assist to turnover percentage in NBA history. So the highest assist to turnover ratio in NBA history is CP3. He's number 1 all time. Second highest assist percentage all time after Stockton, and has finished top 6 in NBA MVP voting 6 times. 7-time All NBA first defense, 9-time All NBA defense total because he made the second team twice, 4-time All NBA first team. All right. So let me just do this compared to Stockton real quick. Yeah, Stockton is the number one. He's the king of assists. He's the all-time assist man. But he had Karl Malone his entire career. Probably, I don't know. Like I'm not gonna rank it, but like he was easily a top 3 scorer in the paint. Those from 1989 to 1998. So that helped him a lot, being able to dish it, huh?
Talking about Karl Malone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think weren't Stockton and Malone drafted the same year?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Like they just came up together in Utah. So that helped him a lot. Like obviously the easiest way to get assists is to lob it in the paint. Again, if the Lakers didn't if the Lakers didn't run the triangle offense with Shaq, if they ran a traditional offense, whoever that point guard was, he's gonna be getting 10 assists per game. But the thing with the triangle is it's like no one's gonna average over 5 or 6 per game because it's just like freelance. You swing it, you swing it. That's a big reason why you look at those Bulls teams too. Jordan and Pippen, they were both like 5 assists per game. Like Pippen was like 5.5, Jordan was like 5.
Just to kind of like add a point to that though, like the reason you use the triangle offense is because you have a great wing player and a great post player. You don't use it because you have a great point guard. If you have a great point guard, you're either going to be running gun or you're going to be someone who can facilitate the entire offense. You look at the teams that like really use the triangle offense to the best. Those Lakers with Kobe and Shaq, great wing player, great post player, and those Bulls with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan on both sides. On top of that, if you have Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen on the both side, and in the paint you have, they had so many different. They had Horace Grant. They had Dennis Rodman. They had.
Like none of them were like low post. Like Rodman wasn't a scorer.
No, they weren't. Like Rodman was a rebounder, but at the same time, like who's the number one option? Michael Jordan. Who's the number 2 option? Scottie Pippen. And in the triangle offense, you can use that.
I feel like you run the triangle when you don't have like a pure point guard and you just have to kind of say you can like dish it around.
Why when you see the triangle fail is because you have a point guard who isn't willing to just let the stars be the stars. Yeah. With the triangle offense, especially with like those Lakers with Shaq, like what are your options? It's either
Derek Fisher.
Back your center in and beat his ass. Kobe's gonna get it on a kick out, ISO your guy and get a score, or you're gonna kick it out to Robert Horry for a 3 or Trevor Ariza in later years. So like the triangle offense is definitely something that takes away from assist numbers, but you use it when you don't have a high assist guy.
But on the flip side though, like if those players weren't in the triangle, like who was the Bulls point guard in like their first league? Was it BJ Armstrong?
BJ Armstrong, Ron Harper.
Yeah. So if you put them in a different scenario, they could have very well been like those guys, high volume, 70 assists per game. We don't know. You don't know.
I mean, I would say that the Bulls.
I saw Jordan because when Jordan played without Pippen, he was averaging like 8-9 assists per game. It was like limited. It was like,
Pippen or Jordan.
When Jordan played without Pippen, you look at some 15-game stretch, 20-game stretch he had when he had to be the guy that was the main distributor. He was getting a triple-double a game.
Yeah, but again, you look at the numbers he was averaging. Like they don't run the triangle offense that. Like the thing is, like the games when Pippen wasn't there, Michael Jordan was the focal point. Just like LeBron James is the focal point when he doesn't have his co-star player. You take AD out of a game right now, LeBron James might get 11 assists, but that's not because the offense is working to perfection. It's because he's doing the things he's got to do for the team to win. Yeah. So Michael Jordan is cut from that same cloth. So when you're looking at like something like the triangle offense, you can't really, focus on assist numbers because that's not the point of it. Triangle offense is made strictly for scoring.
Open man, keep it free flowing, like slashing the ball. That's what it is.
Well, what you say about CP3, so like if I didn't pick Isaiah on my Mount Rushmore post merger, CP3 would be on it. I think CP3 is, after John Stockton, like the most prototypical mold of a point guard in what Dr. James Naismith wanted for the game. CP3 has the leadership skills, he has the passing ability, and he has a scoring talent for when he's needed.
Don't underrate his defense either. He's a much better defender than Stockton.
He's averaged 2 steals a game pretty much his whole career.
Seven-time All NBA for his defense. And that's not like he didn't get any honorary selections because of his name. To this day, he's still a great defender.
All around phenomenal point guard, and I'm not going to doubt that. But I will recognize that he throughout his career not only has underperformed, but has had a lot of resources. Now, mind you, John Stockton, yeah, he had Karl Malone, but after that, like, what was his next option? If you can name me his next option, I'll kudos to you. But like CP3, his Houston day, or not his Houston days,
New Orleans, there's David
his New
West.
Orleans days, he was that guy. He was that guy. But then he moved
David West, he was getting like 9 assists, 10 assists per game.
David West, Tyson Chandler, like he was that guy.
He was not a scorer, so like it was literally just David West, this guy getting the ball in the bucket.
But I mean, when you have Tyson Chandler on your team, it's like having Clint Capella on your team. He's gonna give you at least 3 alley oops a game, or like a three or 4 feet. Like he's a bailout offensive player where you're just
extremely underrated offensive rebounder. And like last decade, I think he was the most consistent center. Like when D12 fell off, when D12 had that back spasms for a good 3 years, I think Tyson Chandler was the best center in the NBA. People overrated Joakim Noah too much. That title went to Joakim Noah, but I think Tyson Chandler was better. I also think Marcus All was better too, but that's a whole different other story. So yeah, Tyson Chandler is underrated.
He had Andrew Bynum like for 1 year too.
It's not long.
Andrew Bynum was the best center in the NBA at one point. I will say that.
The best?
After Dwight Howard went down, the conversation was Joakim Noah, Dwight Howard, Marcus Saul, and Tyson Chandler. I would take Andrew Bynum in the 1 year where he averaged about 25 and 10. I would take him.
That was the year that KD and LeBron met in the playoffs. So yeah, you're right. He was a beast that year. And I thought the Lakers were gonna make the finals that year just because of how great Andrew Bynum was playing. So yeah, he was a great offensive player. He actually had better post moves than Dwight, to be honest. He had better post moves. Dwight was just more an athletic freak in nature.
Yeah, and I mean, back then you had a lot of centers who just played their role really well. You had Nene. You had he wasn't necessarily a center, but Kenneth Faried was a big man who played like a center. You had a lot of pieces there who, they played their role. They got you those offensive rebounds, and they were someone who could just feed into the post to get the bucket. Roy Hibbert. Yeah. Obviously before he became a 0-0-0 guy, but when it comes down to CP3, like the Lob City years, I think inflate his legacy a little bit. Not saying that like he wasn't.
I think that puts too big of a taint on his legacy. Like I think that big people hate on like too much because he played with Blake Griffin. But there's another thing to this too. Blake Griffin is arguably the worst clutch performing perennial all-star player in NBA history. Like if you look at his fourth quarter stats, that man was averaging 1.7 points per game. Like those rounds, he was the choke artist on this team. It wasn't CP3. CP3 at one.
But every single team throughout his entire career in clutch time, since his rookie year, he has been the go-to guy in the clutch. Now, mind you, him not performing in the clutch, that's a factor, but that's also why he's not a superstar. He is a superstar in the NBA, but he's also on the Pistons and on the Clippers. In the fourth quarter, you need scoring. You're not going to CP3. You're not going to Andre Drummond. You're going to Blake Griffin. And I think a big factor that plays into that is he might be the last go-to post-clutch scorer since Embiid. Like Jokic, you can argue, but Jokic isn't really like that.
Blake did develop a very decent mid-range jump shot in the last 2 years in the Clippers, but that would just disappear in crunch time because he's just mentally weak. He's one of those players. You're phenomenal DNA. He can put up.
But again, like clutch numbers. But if you're talking about the greatest power forward in the past 10 years, aside from, like again, this is the past 10 years. So like Tim Duncan's end of his legacy.
I think Blake Griffin's
end of his legacy. Chris Bosh's end of his legacy.
For like the last thing, it was like Blake Griffin, Anthony Davis, Chris Bosh, and then
Kevin Love.
Yeah, this is that stuff.
So it's just it's hard to look at those players and be like, oh, power forward is a conversation that we can have another day. But what I'm saying is CP3 is a player who has had questionable leadership, but also I think because there have been
a scenario they win and they're a 4 seed or higher. You put them in OKC, bro. And the second best player, like right now, they're like a higher seed. They're doing much better than they were with Westbrook. Like Westbrook kind of slipped off your tongue a little bit. So like you put him anywhere. He's a systemless player, and his
Playing,
generation, he has
playing
the
his
second
role,
highest
yeah.
basketball IQ in his generation after LeBron.
Playing his role, no doubt. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about the vocal leadership. He's literally been described as like the nagging aunt. He's not one to take the blame for a mess up. The reason his relationships break up in whatever team he's at isn't because the team's not performing and whatnot, but a lot of it is because he can't coexist with a superstar.
I mean, I've heard people call him a bitch a lot, so that's probably where it's stemming from.
He couldn't coexist with James Harden. Now, mind you, James Harden is hard to coexist with, but in Lob City might be one of the greatest teams to never make a championship run.
You mean
Especially,
make the finals?
yeah.
They weren't built to me. Like I mentioned, DeAndre Jordan can't play in the last 5 minutes of games. Blake
That's
Griffin,
not true. DeAndre Jordan is a consistent rebounder throughout the
yeah,
entire game on his like
but when
Clippers
you need him in
days.
the last 5 minutes, he can't play because of
And you can say Blake Griffin wasn't that guy in the clutch, but like, who's the one facilitating that offense? Because here's the thing, Blake Griffin and DeAndre ain't bringing.
Wait, hold on, your thing froze. Would you say Blake Griffin? Yeah,
So I'm saying that team was probably one of the last few teams we've seen that's very focused on their post players. But this is the thing: Blake Griffin's not dribbling the ball down the court. DeAndre's not dribbling the ball down the court, and you're trusting CP3, one of the greatest point guards of all time, to call the right plays. The thing is, I don't want to play with a point guard who, if he gives me the ball and I fuck up, he's gonna blame it on me. I think that CP3 is a great point guard in terms of assists, defense, and scoring. But when you look at him versus John Stockton, a point guard at the end of the day is a floor general. You have to understand your team and how to run your team in the proper way to win. John Stockton wanted a higher what?
He didn't win anything though. Like, what did he win?
John Stockton?
Yeah, like he made two finals, but like he didn't win. He didn't come anywhere close to winning.
Yeah, because he played in Jordan era. On top of that, when is the last time that CP3 made it to the finals? Never.
Here's another thing. Here's another caveat to this. In the KD Curry era in Golden State, who was the only team to ever be in control of a series versus them in the playoffs?
The Rockets.
Yes, and they were up. And they were up 3-2. What happened in game 6? Who got hurt?
CP3.
Exactly. And that when we look back at history, we're probably going to say that's the most stacked team in NBA history. Even though I think the Showtime Lakers could give them a run for their money, the consensus is going to be that that's the most stacked team in NBA history. The only player to ever call the series versus them was CP3, and he got hurt in that game 7.
Valid. But any team losing their point guard is a huge hit, regardless if he's a phenomenal point guard or if he's just a role player. Because the thing is,
but they were only in control of that series because of CP3. That Rockets team's identical to the teams that lost to the Warriors in the past. The only difference they had is
the external factors that CP3 brought aside from being a point guard. He extended the floor with his shooting ability. He was someone who could match up well with Steph Curry. And he was also someone who understood how to find the open man when James Harden really couldn't do that. Mind you, that year, James Harden was also actually at the top of his game when it came to passing. So that team was very dynamic. And yes, when you lose a star player just like Chris Paul, it's going to hurt. Chris Paul, I'm not saying Chris Paul is not a star, but I'm saying that he is not as essential of a point guard as John Stockton is.
He's not.
Like,
not what?
He's not as essential as John Stockton was. That's what I'm saying. Because he's always been able to coexist with the team. Now, the Hornets days, I'll give that as like, that was his prime, in my opinion. LA Clippers days, he was able to hoop out, but he had Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan to carry on with his mistakes, and one of the best Lob City teams we've ever seen. But John Stockton played his role consistently on the same team. And yeah, you had Karl Malone down low, but after that, what'd you have? Not much. And they were able to go to finals. Yeah, Karl Malone's a beast down low, rebounds and scoring. But John Stockton was a floor general to the T. He didn't need his 25 a game. he was able to make the money off of just finding his open man in the fast break, find his open man in the half court. And I think when you think about a point guard, again, like keep in mind, we're talking about point guards, not just players who played the point guard position. Who fit that point guard bill the best? And in the 90s, you're thinking point guard, you're thinking two guys, Isaiah Thomas and John Stockton. And who has that edge? John Stockton.
90 OJ Isaiah Thomas kind of fell off by the 90s, I think.
Exactly.
So I think for the 90s is really just Stockton and who else? Jason Kidd kind of came in the end. So
Jason Kidd was 2000s, bro. I would say in the 90s.
He got drafted in 96 and he won the co-NBA of the Rookie of the Year and stuff. So he
had, and he was supposed to be the next big thing. I guess you could say AI, but AI, in my opinion, was a shooting guard.
Yeah.
But again,
let's compare the games because again, like we can bring up winning, but a big portion of old time is being a basketball player. All right. Let's say scoring wise, CP3's got the edge over Stockton. Passing wise, it's really close. I think they're even.
I would not say even. I mean, I think not just the fact that he has the most assists of all time. I would say look at his scoring versus his passing. The man understood how to use his passing to his team's ability. Karl Malone does not have the same scoring numbers he has without John Stockton on his team.
And Stockton doesn't have the assist numbers he does without Malone. Thing is, another thing too, turnover, switching teams is very hard. Like switching teams, being able to consistently be the same player in so many different settings and so many different systems, that's a big accomplishment right there. So you had him in the Hornets, the Clippers, the Rockets, and now the Thunder, and he's still that dude. Like he's still balling out. He's winning wise. Like you can put him in any situation, they're gonna be a 4 seed or higher. That's huge. Like being a 4 seed or higher everywhere you go. And then on top of that too, defensively, he gets criminally unreal time defensively.
I'll agree with that. But again,
Magic, OG, Isaiah Thomas, and CP3 are the 3 best defending point guards post merger. That are in that like obviously there's gonna be defensive special. Let's talk about like superstar point guards. So we're not gonna count guys like Kirk Heinrich. We're not gonna count guys like who's another like shutdown defensive point guard that's not a superstar. That's a lot.
Patrick Beverly, New Age.
Yeah, Rondo even. Like Rondo's not in that discussion, but he was a great
and I'll give you that. But the thing that I wanna say with John Stockton is when you look at that Jazz run, right? And I know people say 90s versus 2000s and 2010s, completely different generations. But CP3, yeah, he's gone from team to team, and but he's also had to play different roles on every single team. But when he was the floor general, he had multiple pieces when John Stockton never did. Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Paul Pierce, Wesley Johnson, Lance Stevenson, all in their prime. Paul Pierce towards the end of it. Austin Rivers in his beginning of his season career. Hornets, David West, all-star level. Tyson Chandler, great finisher inside. Trevor Ariza, three-point specialist. Then you go to the Rockets, Clint Capella, same thing as Tyson Chandler. James Harden, one of the greatest scorers of all time, if not the best. Then you have
look at what he did in Houston, bro. Like he's the only guy to ever be in control of a series versus the most stacked team ever. And you can't even say it's because of Harden because it's literally the identical team. The only difference is you plugged in CP3, and all of a sudden, everyone's thinking, bro, they're gonna beat the Warriors, and then he goes down. Like again, that's a big what if, but he was up 3-2. And you look at LeBron. LeBron had those are good. They were good Cavs teams. You had LeBron.
Stockton in the same position as Stockton goes down. You're gonna say the same thing.
But Stockton was never in control versus the Bulls. He was never in control of any series versus them.
Because
to be frank with it too, the thing is that the Stockton and Karl Malone are the best one-two punch Jordan ever went against, and they didn't come anywhere close. Frankly, Sir Charles, Patrick Ewing, and Reggie Miller, all 3 of them, they give Jordan better fights than Malone and Stockton.
You have to look – okay, fair. But you also have to look at the factor of, like, what are you going up against the Bulls? When you're going against the Bulls, you're going against good interior defense and great isolation scoring in Michael Jordan. And, honestly, good perimeter defense coming from Scottie Pippen and B.J. Armstrong or Ron Harper. The reason Patrick Ewing did so well is because, let's be honest, no center ever to play on the Bulls was able to match up with Patrick Ewing. Dennis Rodman too small. Dennis Rodman was on the team after Patrick Ewing was in his prime. Charles Barkley, there was no power forward besides Dennis Rodman, but again, after his time.
Rodman's probably the greatest defending power forward of all time.
Again, Charles Barkley had a team with Dan Merrily, Danny Ainge, great shooters around him to where you had to stretch the floor. You couldn't have help defense inside. On top of that, the next person he said was Reggie Miller. Dude, he was a three-point specialist before that was even a term. So when we look at it, yeah, they did better against the Bulls than Stockton and Malone. But a running gun offense along with a point guard who can distribute the ball to one of the greatest, if not the greatest power forward of all time, it's not going to work against – because Stockton didn't have moves. Stockton was just strong.
And so CP3 has moved. That's again ability-wise. So CP3 has much more ability, a better.
That's Malone versus Paul. I'm talking like Stockton. Yeah, Chris Paul has a better scoring ability than John Stockton.
Better defending.
But I think when it comes down to being a floor general, John Stockton fits that mold better than any point guard in NBA history.
I don't agree, but we can agree to disagree on that.
Hey, man, that's why it's a Mount Rushmore. You choose who you carve into yours, I choose who I carve into mine. And listen, I think at the end of the day, we can agree that both are in contention.
Yeah. And to be honest, I put OG Isaiah Thomas over Stockton too, just because of the fact, yeah, like those are good teams, but when we look back, he was the best player on both those title teams, and there have only been 3 point guards in NBA history to win titles as the best player on their team: Magic Johnson, OG Isaiah Thomas, and Curry to win multiple.
You could argue Oscar Robertson, but I mean Kareem was there.
That was like before merge. Oscar Robertson won his title in 1971. That was before.
Oh,
merge.
You're talking post-merger. All right. Bet.
Has anyone even, as the best player, as a point guard, has anyone even won one championship as the best player as a point guard? Like being the best player on a team, you're a point guard, win one championship.
I mean, I can't think of one. I mean, you could argue maybe Tony Parker in.
Chauncey Billups. Never mind. He was. I think he was the best person on the.
Chauncey, but I mean, you also had Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace who were both balling out. So.
Yeah, but again, I think OG Isaiah Thomas was the best player on those teams because it was Dumars, Bill Laimbeer. Was Adrian Dantley on those teams that they won a title with?
With Big O.
No, I'm talking about Bad Boy Pistons because wasn't Dantley on the Bad Boy?
Towards the end. I think Dantley was only with them for like a few years, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he won a title with them.
The title was like the original Bad Boys. Adrian Dantley was a part of that narrative.
Yeah, because I know he won a scoring title with the Pistons, but yeah. So then again, that just bolsters OG Isaiah Thomas's case even more.
I'm with that.
So yeah, I'd say old time, yeah, Magic. Old time I got Magic, Big O, Curry, and CP3. Then if you want to do post merger, I'm gonna have Magic, Curry, CP3 still, and then I'm gonna have OG Isaiah Thomas.
Okay, I'm with that. I will. The last question I'm gonna ask before I think after this we could wrap it up. But the last thing I'm gonna ask is there any point guard in today's game who you think has the potential to get onto that Mount Rushmore?
Right now, that's a good question. You counting Trae Young as a point guard?
I don't think Trae Young is.
I don't think you got it in him either.
In my opinion, I'll say one of the two. I think, and again, this isn't small forwards who play the PG. It's true point guards. I think John Morant reminds me a lot of Derrick Rose before the injuries. So barring he avoids any, crucial injuries, I think he could get himself. I think he could be the most athletic point guard of all time. I'll say the second. The second one, I think, could potentially make his way up on there.
Because Luka ain't a point guard, is he? Luka ain't a point guard, is he?
Who?
Luka, you don't call him. He's not gonna call. He's a small forward, right? Luka.
He's a small forward who brings the ball up like LeBron.
Yeah, he's not. I'm not gonna call him a point guard though, so I'm not gonna
call him a point guard either.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Dame, but I don't think he's got it.
I think Dame's just like Harden with me. Like they've gotten to this point in their career where like you're gonna be a godly player with tons of ability, but it's just that mental toughness. That's something if you don't have it at a young age, you don't develop it at an old age. That's why we saw Peyton Manning never develop it. We saw Dan Marino. Well, again, Dan Marino didn't really develop it. Then we go back before like Who else? There's a lot of guys like that. Just that mental tough. That's the one thing you can develop in your career. Really, there's like you're like your ceiling pretty soon by like your fourth.
Chip on your shoulder that you just gotta have,
Yeah, by your fourth or fifth season, if you don't have it, you don't have it. Like mental toughness is something you develop in your high school days. Like it's just like it's your personality. It's just the way you have to be cool. Like you have to be cool, chill with it. You gotta have that killer instinct. You gotta like I'm the shit. Like nothing's gonna come at me. Like I'm gonna make this in your face. That mental toughness. Even like LeBron has it, but like he's never gonna get it. He's never gonna be on Jordan's level with that mental toughness, just because it's just the way you're built, you're wired.
Yeah, and
That's why Kobe.
conversation for Jody, bro.
Huh?
That's definitely a conversation that we should have another day. That Jordan versus LeBron, but that's a good conversation that we should have at some point. But
Yeah. I'm gonna spit 3 point guards at you. Rank them best to worst. I love comparing these players. I feel like they won't get compared enough, even though they played in the same time period. Like Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, and Chauncey. Like ranking them best to worst. Like
I'm going Steve Nash best. I'm going Are we talking about prime or are we talking about whole career?
that's a tough one.
I'll say whole career, I'm giving it to Chauncey and then Jason Kidd. If we're talking about prime, I'm going Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Chauncey. Steve Nash, I think one of his MVPs was kind of BS, but I think he, like Stockton, knew how to work with what he had. And on top of that, he was also, he was Curry before.
He had more stacked teams than Stockton, actually.
Yeah, he had a
Joe Johnson.
That's something. Sean Marion, Jason Richardson.
Yeah, all right, like it's stats, like stats.
Yeah, but
the guy playing right now, I think Melo had a better career than Nash, but that's a conversation, a whole different day that we're gonna do in the future.
For sure, and I think Steve Nash, 100%. He knew his role. He led the team extremely well, but he also was an offensive threat point guard before that was really something that people worried about. He knew his team. What's up?
I would say there's one thing about Nash too. Similar to CP3, they could have been much better scorers if they were less selfish. I think CP3 could have averaged 25 a games a couple seasons career, maybe like 2-3 seasons he could have done it because in the playoffs he did it. And Nash has the most underrated 3-point shot in NBA history. Most underrated 3-point shot, yo.
50-40-90 guy. 50-40-90.
Make it rain. If he, to the point he was so unselfish, to the point where he was selfish in my eyes. Like, obviously, he didn't do it on purpose, but yo, you got a lights out 3-point shot. You probably the best 3-point shot in the NBA during those 2 years you won MVP. You're not shooting enough, bro. You're not shooting enough.
He wasn't the number one scoring offense because he didn't want to be,
Yeah.
But yeah, dude. Again, like
I'm gonna go Jason Kidd number 1, Chauncey number 2, Nash number 3.
And that's off their primes, I'm assuming.
I think primes and their old career, just because Nash, like you said, I think that he got that one MVP year was bogus. The other one, yeah, like he was crazy assist numbers. But when I look at Jason Kidd, he took a team to the finals in his prime.
I think Chauncey was a great point guard. I just think it's hard to say that he was the best player on that Pistons team.
I think he was.
I think he was in contention. I just think that the two Wallaces, pretty sure Jerry Stackhouse was on the team. It's tricky.
You got Rick Hamilton too.
Rip Hamilton, the mask, yeah. But either way.
Oh, another biggest what if in NBA history, if the Pistons draft Melo over Darko. Whew.
Well, yeah,
Dynasty City, bro.
Also, yeah, what if they draft D Wade? Like, there's so many. They could have literally drafted 3 different players in that entire draft in the entire NBA.
Yeah, the thing is, D Wade wasn't in the conversation for that number 2 pick. Like,
yeah, because Melo on Syracuse was a monster.
A national title, and
but
Wade just came up in that tournament.
That would be a good episode where we just look at drafts and just what could have been,
Yeah, no.
But yeah, bro, I'm gonna say we did a good first pilot. Good first pilot. I want to thank everybody who be listening. shouts out to Danielle. This was his idea. This is his baby. We don't even know if it's gonna go anywhere, but it's just fun. I mean, I'm in my closet right now, just talking sports with my boy. And here's the thing, I'd say 90% of the time we're gonna have something we disagree on, and we're gonna argue about those stats, those facts, those opinions. And if you're listening to us, chances are 90% of the stuff we say you disagree on us as well. But that's the whole point of sports talk shows. That's why some of the most famous people are the controversial ones. But everything's up for debate. Everything's up for conversation. At the end of the day, it's opinions. If you disagree, you disagree. If you agree, you agree.
Sure.
We're just having fun with it.
If you watch this episode too, you can tell. And when we give our points, we're giving more content and logic behind it than those guys on those TV shows. You can tell that we know our stuff like that, and we're just students of the game, just knowing how everything works, like following it closely, and X's and O's, context to what going on in the scenarios, numbers, just everything. So, and again, this is a long episode. I might break down the topics into separate videos, but again, like you see, like in the comments, like you said, we're not sure if it'll take off, but we're gonna go hand with it. We're gonna go give it a 500%. We're gonna go hand with it, make sure this thing blows up. We can't say we didn't try. We tried, and we're going hand with it, and that's how we're doing it. And
you never know if you don't try, people. So this is what it is. This was fun, bro. You wanna send us off real nice. Talk to me nice.
Balling from the sidelines, pilot episode number 1. Fire, food for thought, hitting everything, all the stuff, straight to your head top. This is going to keep your brain running. These are one of these shows, like, even when you turn it off, it's going to be playing in the back of your mind. Like, yo, Daniel said this. I don't agree with that. And you know what? That's why we have the comment section. That's why you're going to have our Twitters. You're going to have all this stuff. You can always come at us. This is 24/7. Yo, we'll even reply to you, yo. If you have a point and you want to, like, debate it in private or something, like, let us know. Straight up. And so yeah, like, this is literally, we're not going with the media narratives. Oftentimes you see on ESPN and Fox Sports, like, there's something sounds like hearsay, they're not going to say it just because, like, oh, people might think this, I'm going to look crazy about this. But if you have the facts and you have the logic to back it up, and I can tell you right now, when we both spoke, even if you disagree with what we said, the facts we brought up were all valid points. They're all things you can't dispute. So if you disagree with it, maybe you don't think those facts are as important, or you don't value those points as much, but you can't knock the hustle. You can't deny that it's true. It's like, again, it's perception, but on top of that, we have supporting evidence. We're not talking off the side of our neck right now.
You can't deny. If you can deny something we say, you can deny it, but come back with something real. Like, there are times, like, just in this conversation, I say something, Danielle, throws it back at me with a different fact, contradicts me, vice versa. It is what it is, but this is all just for fun. At the end of the day, it's entertainment. Sports is entertainment. I know it's a big deal. I live this shit. He lives this shit. But at the end of the day, we're just here to keep it real with you, have fun with it, talk our opinions, talk our minds off. And, your opinions are your opinions. Don't feel that something we said means that you're wrong. So, yeah, be interactive with us. Tell us your opinions. And hopefully, we hear from y'all in the future, and, we have fun with this. So
become a baller from the sideline stand, because one of these days you can even be a guest star. We can do 3 people on this. We can have you guests and everything. So if you think you got what it takes, you got the facts, you got your mind right for this stuff. Yo, you don't even know. You can even be a guest star on this. So, stand it as hard as you can. If you're one of the people that's standing, I'm gonna reward you for it. I'm gonna let you be on the show. Show love, we show love back.
It ain't as easy as it looks. Keep in mind, this is both of our first time doing something like this. So this isn't easy. Like, I can tell you right now, from my notes from this, like, take more notes, come in with more stats, more research, have something to back up your conversation other than everybody has that initial headline that they're going to use for their argument, but, back it up. Have something to say. And
bro, this is all off the dome. We just looked it up to make sure, like, to double check. And, we're not going to have the stats down to the decimal point. We already knew it. We just had to, so, like, this is just all, like, we're students of the game. We knew all this stuff. And I know I got a lot of friends that know this stuff too. We're not flexing right now. We're just keeping it real with telling you, like, this is a good show and you should continue watching it, because it's gonna open up to a lot of perspectives, and you're gonna enjoy it. Because I know all of us, we live for sports right now. We tweak it right now because we can't watch none of our sports right now. But thank God, Orlando is going down in Disney World. So, yes, sir.
Keep it moving, keep it real. Looking forward to the next episode. And just like Danielle said, this is Ball from the Sidelines. Peace out.
We out.